Starting with the first one, we actually have 7 sources outside of the New Testament which mention the existence of Jesus. 3 major ones go even further. Tacitus, writing around 100 AD, says that Rome suffered a great fire in 64 AD, and many blame the Emperor Nero. To get rid of the rumors, Tacitus says, "Hence to suppress the rumors, he falsely charged with the guilt, and punished with the most exquisite tortures, the persons commonly called Christians, who were hated for their enormities. Christus, the founder of the name, was put to death by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judea, in the reign of Tiberius." As you can see, Tacitus is a hostile witness, which means his testimony meets the criteria of embarrassment, and he confirms what the New Testament says, that Jesus existed, that he was put to death, and by Pontius Pilate, was ruling in Judea under Emperor Tiberius. So Tacitus attests to 5 facts that align with the accounts in the New Testament. Another historian by the name of Josephus says of Christ, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive, again the 3rd day, as the divine prophets had foretold, these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named for him are not extinct at this day." Now the odd thing about this passage is Josephus was a Jew, not a Christian, yet he says Jesus was the Christ and confirms the resurrection. Because of this, scholars agree this passage has been interpolated, which means a later Christian scribe doctored it. However, that doesn't mean the entire passage is a fraud, and in fact most scholars think it is original and just slightly doctored. And fortunately we have textual evidence to confirm this. In 1971, an Arabic version of this passage from Josephus was found, and it reads like this: "At this time there was a wise man, who was called Jesus, and his conduct was good, and he was known to be virtuous, and many people from among the Jews and the other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die, and those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them after his crucifixion, and that he was alive. Accordingly, he was perhaps the Messiah, concerning whom the prophets had recounted wonders." So as I said, most scholars accept this passage was interpolated, and was originally more like what is found in the Arabic manuscript. Josephus also confirms in other sections that the brother of Jesus was James, and that John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod Antipas. Therefore, Josephus confirms New Testament facts that Jesus existed, he was a good and moral teacher, that many people followed him, he was put to death by Pilate by crucifixion. After his death, his disciples believe he appeared to them. They continued to preach his message. James was his brother. John the Baptist existed and was put to death by Herod Antipas. The Babylonian Talmud says, "On the eve of Passover they hanged Yeshua, and an announcer went out in front of him for 40 days saying, 'He is going to be stoned because he practiced sorcery and enticed and led Israel astray. Anyone who knows anything in his favor, let him come and plead in his behalf.' But not having found anything in his favor, they hanged him on the eve of Passover." The Talmud confirms the Jews wanted to stone Jesus, that he was crucified around Passover, and that he led many Jews away from the religious authorities. There is also an implication a trial happened, and the Talmud confirms Jesus was believed to be a miracle worker by accusing him of sorcery. This meets the criteria of embarrassment, since they have to admit it was believed Jesus had some supernatural power, but accuse it of coming from an evil source. This is why most historians accept Jesus was believed to be a miracle worker. As Graham Twelftree says, there is now almost unanimous agreement among Jesus questers that the historical Jesus performed mighty works. Even the Jesus Seminar lists among their basic facts about Jesus that he was a charismatic healer and exorcist. Thus we have several facts from these 3 sources, which confirm the broad historical facts of the New Testament. Finally, there is evidence in a citation from Africanus that the historians Pelagian and Thallus mention the period of darkness that happened around the time of Christ's death. He says, Thallus, in the 3rd book of his Histories, explains away the darkness as an eclipse of the sun unreasonably. Pelagian appears to have said, during the time of Tiberius Caesar, an eclipse of the sun occurred during the full moon. Therefore, we have extra-biblical sources for the period of darkness in the New Testament. And also, we have a large amount of facts in the New Testament confirmed by other sources.